Casey says it's time. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight. I would like to ask for the participants at the table with the commission, the other tables as we speak, be sure to try to speak into your mic. I think a lot of people that are viewing remotely had some issues hearing us last meeting. So make sure you speak into your mic. All right, I will go for the roll call now, please.
Chuck Angier.
Here.
Tim Duffer.
Here.
Brian Fox.
Here.
Kermit King.
Here.
Bobby Lovelace.
Here.
Ben Meeks.
Mr. Meeks will be just a few minutes late, just so you know.
Ron Scares.
Here.
Keith Scruggs.
Here.
And Bert Sellers.
Here. Very good, thank you. Under agenda items to be added, I know we're going to add, under new business, we're going to move the closed session down to item 3. We're going to add a new item 2, which is going to be the discussion of the EMS billing rates. Did everybody got the handout, I think, from Mr. Slint? Very good, thank you. Any other items on the agenda need to be added, deleted, or changed? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda with the one addition.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next we move on to the minutes from the last meeting. All right, if you had a minute or two to look over the minutes from the previous meeting, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to presentations. We have one listed here, fiscal year 22 county budget presentation by Mr. Smitherman.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to appear. It's my pleasure to spend a few minutes this evening speaking with you about our FY22 proposed budget. While this is not central or focused on fire and rescue services, it certainly is related thereto and impactful of how we support our volunteer fire and rescue services. Anyway, I'll get started on it. I'm glad to be here. I'd like to be able to do this for all of our volunteer commissions. Not all of them will get a chance, but we are doing this presentation in several places around the county over the coming, let me turn this on, over the coming week, including Thursday night at Dan River High School. So the proposed budget as presented to the Board of Supervisors last week provides a 62-cent tax rate. That is the same tax rate we've had since fiscal year 19. We have seen some growth in revenue, which is interesting to us, and more interesting is where the revenue growth is coming from. Local sales tax has been extremely steady in Pittsylvania County since COVID hit. We attribute that largely to the amount of commerce that we are engaged in online, as well as a court case that was settled a couple years ago with, I can't remember the name of it, I think Wayfair was involved, that brings sales tax back to the point of delivery. So in the past, or traditionally, when you buy something at Target in Danville, the sales tax stays there. When you shop on Amazon, the sales tax comes to Chatham. And what we have seen is not only an increase in our sales tax to the tune of about $300,000 over our budget amount, but we're seeing a steady a less volatile sales tax climate in our county, where we're bringing in about $285,000 a month in local sales tax, and we're projecting growth in the coming year. We also have had a great increase in personal property tax, and I attribute that, both of these actually, directly to our stimulus payments that have been sent down from DC, and we expect these numbers to be strong again this time next year. It occurs to us that when we get money we did not expect, it seems to go to automobiles, and personal property is the taxation of automobiles and boats and RVs and campers, and that's what a lot of people have been buying. And our sales tax, or our personal property tax, I think it's up about $1.2 million. Our school contribution is not quite $20 million. 71% of this budget, and when I talk about this budget, I'm talking about the general fund budget. All of our budgets combined are about $211 million, but the one that we operate in is the $71 million general fund budget. $113 million is the schools portion of the $211 million total budget, and there's probably 24 other ancillary funds that exist inside the $211 million. So 71% goes to public safety, law enforcement, school operations, and debt. That leaves us 29% to do everything else, which is recreation, finance, community development, all the things that you think about when you think about running Pittsylvania County. Only 29% of our revenue in the general fund goes to those operations. And then finally, we're in a final phase of a support for our sheriff's deputies. Our sheriff's deputies will receive on average an 8.78% salary increase in FY22. I love to talk about how we compare, because everyone loves to say, we get taxed too much. It's too expensive in Pittsylvania County. Our tax rate's too high. Well, everything is relative. Everything is relative to what other people do. And by and large, Pennsylvania County is a very low tax place to live. Our citizens pay about $412, I think it is, dollars per capita in government services. Our neighbor next door in Franklin, their citizens pay about $710 per capita for Franklin County services. You see on this chart that we also provide the tax rate. People like to fixate on the tax rate, but the tax rate is only relative to the amount of things that are being taxed. And in Pittsylvania County, we have $4.8 billion worth of things being taxed, i.e. real estate. In Franklin County, they're at $7.2 billion, and in Bedford County is $10.4 billion. So it's all relative. Bedford County has a 50-cent tax rate, but in 2019, they were paying about $550 per person. That number in FY20, talking to my counterpart there, is about $775 per person. So regardless of the tax rate, it's about how much you pay. What is the burden? And our burden is very low in Pittsylvania County in general. And most of Virginia is also. How much does a penny produce? Well, you levy a 50-cent tax rate in Bedford County, which sounds very, very low. Well, they're bringing in $888,000 per penny. We're bringing in $427,000 per penny, so double. They have, so they would be able to reduce their tax rate to 25 cents, and they would generate the amount of money we generate. So again, it's all relative, and it's always good to understand how you compare to others. The city of Danville has an 84-cent tax rate. They generate about $220,000 per penny. Here's where the money goes. You see on the right-hand side of the chart that where our extra revenue is coming from. This is probably the most revenue we've picked up in a single year since I've been here, except for the reassessment year. Real estate had modest growth. It would be more, and I know you're thinking there's a lot of activity out there. Why aren't we picking up more real estate tax? Well, we lost a $50 million power plant in Hurt that came off the books this year. So that offset what little gains we were picking up in real estate. I've already told you about sales tax and personal property. 40 cents of every dollar comes from our real estate tax. 30 cents of every dollar is shared with the state of Virginia. 14 cents of every dollar comes from our personal property tax. And I believe this chart is on the handout that I provided you prior to our discussion. One of the things I like to talk about and I like to address is I hear for some strange reason that there are just way too many government employees in Chatham. Well, there's 6 less than when I got here, and we're doing a heck of a lot more. We do a tremendous amount of work with a very limited staff. We've lost 6 employees, but we picked up $1 million of payroll because our employees had not had raises basically since 2008. And we started back in, I'm sorry, not 2008, is that right? Anyway, it was years, and we started that back in 2018, providing a cost of living adjustment that is based upon the consumer price index of the southern states. And this year it's 1.4%, so our employees will get a 1.4% raise. Last year it was 2.2, I think, and 2.0 the year before. It's not an arbitrary number. We index against the cost of living. We have $21 million worth of salaries. We are a service business. Without people, it doesn't run, and that's where the majority of our money, or a significant portion of our money goes. We're paying about $10 million a year in debt service. We're paying about $8 million of that is just for the retirement of the school bonds for our middle schools and our high schools, which will be with us quite a few more years. I think it's 2031 or early 2030s that we start dropping a significant amount of debt. And I have a slide to show you what that looks like. We are providing $1.8 million in support for our volunteer services, about a 76% increase over a 3-year period. And one thing that we watch, it may not be interesting to you, but we watch our CSA expenses, Children's Services Act or Comprehensive Services Act. I think the name's changed a couple times. We anticipate that to go up because so many of the children with behavioral problems, those problems are only getting exacerbated by the pandemic because they're not getting social interaction. And we've seen an increase in cases during this year. We expect that to continue. Just another pictorial of where the money goes. You see that that 71% is pretty steady over the years, and that's the public safety, law enforcement, debt, and schools portion of our budget. School funding has increased $2.5 million in the past 5 years. That's not compounded, that is annual. So we are paying the school system $2.5 million more on an annualized basis than we did in FY17. Meanwhile, and this is a slide that I put on every year because it continues to cause concern for me, we've lost 1,000 students in our school system over 7 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And it begs the question, which I get skewered for every time I bring it up, is how can you keep running 21 schools when your population has gone down by 1,000 kids? The tail that wags the dog in education expense is salaries. 76% roughly of the school board's budget is people. And people are in buildings, and buildings cost money. I think we'll probably be asking the voters if they would like to borrow money to improve our school buildings. And we're going to keep chasing that as long as we have that many buildings out there. And the only way to really reduce the cost of education is to reduce the number of schools, which means reducing the number of teachers, which means reducing the number of salaries, which means reducing the amount of expenditure. That's a very difficult conversation to have because we have extremely excellent schools, 100% accredited. We have community elementary schools that are highly valued in our community, and nobody wants to close one because they value their school, and that pride is why they do so well. One of the things that hit us this year, and I told the Board of Supervisors about it, is our increased expense to retirement. We have over a $500,000 increase in retirement expense. We pay 12% of an employee's salary toward retirement. That is a mandate because we participate in the Virginia retirement system. That was an unexpected expense this year. The average salaries in our sheriff's office since FY18 have increased 24.23%. The Board of Supervisors really made that a top priority over the past few years, is getting to a competitive wage. And I believe we'll be very close to the minimum starting salary for a deputy will be very close to $40,000 in the next 12 months. So we've really pushed taking care of our law enforcement officers. 273 employees in FY18, 267 today, and total salary expenses have increased not quite $1.1 million over that period. We continue to work hard on monetizing our landfill. It is the best asset in this county, and the people, the supervisors that made that hard decision of developing this landfill, 450 acres in the middle of our county, or just south of the middle of our county, made a super wise investment. We had this time last year 150 years of usable life in our landfill. We have decided to monetize that because we are trying to build new compactor sites. We're trying to rehab the decrepit equipment that we've inherited over the years. And our Board of Supervisors is challenging us to find more ways to bring revenue to this county through this asset. By doing that, we're offloading the expense of our taxpayers onto the backs of people that don't live here, because we are developing 3 compactor sites, we are buying new equipment, we are developing new cells, and all the money we're using for that is from people that don't live here. It's from other people's trash money, and we are going to keep doing that. Like I said, we are going to continue to improve our collection system. Everything south of 57 is in good shape. The county really focused on that area because that's where the majority of the population is for, let's say, from the mid-90s until the mid-2000s. Probably at least a 20-year period. All of our focus seemed to be in the southern part of the county. We neglected a lot of our communities, and we are giving them the resources they deserve and that they pay for. And we're doing that by developing 3 new trash collection sites, which are the green checks on your screen. That will allow us to eliminate 5 green box sites. Green box sites takes a front loader to dump. The compactor sites, we can go much longer between. We get much more volume and can visit the site for cleaning much less frequently because we have much higher volume in our collection. So we're going to be improving that in the coming year. 3 years ago, we set forth I guess it would be 4 years ago, we set forth a 4-year plan for our community. And we pledged, the Board of Supervisors did, not to raise taxes, to not change the tax rate for a 4-year period. And we're going to, I hope, endeavor to do that again so that our citizens have consistency in their rate, consistency in their payment in between reassessment cycles. This is the last year of our reassessment cycle. We made plans to make investments over this 4 years, and a lot of those plans came true. We invested more money in fire and rescue than we had anticipated. We have invested more in our employees than we anticipated. We fell short in some areas. We wanted to put away money so that we weren't living year to year on major purchases. We've not been able to build our capital reserve fund. We were not able to set aside money for our reassessment project like we anticipated. In fact, I remember before the ink dried on the budget in FY19, Regional 1 shut down, and we had to scramble and come up with about 600 or 400, basically $500,000 that we did not budget to fund the replacement of that service, and that killed all of our plans related to reassessment. And the big thing that kept us from making all our goals is Mountain Valley Pipeline has not come through. We anticipated getting at least $1.1 million of revenue every year during this cycle from Mountain Valley. I remember the day I came here, December 1st, 2016, and the supervisor said, man, you got nothing to worry about. The pipeline's getting built, and we're going to get $1.1 million. Well, let me tell you, it's been nothing but problems ever since that day. But we've made it through, and we're on solid footing. But we need to rebuild our economic development fund. We're very aggressive in economic development. Those investments are paying off, and there's more good news in our future. We continue to retire debt. We have paid $33 million in the last 4 fiscal years, on our outstanding debt. We have a good bond rating. We have debt capacity. We can borrow money if we need money. The hard part about borrowing money is you have to pay it back, and we don't have a good wherewithal for that. We like the stuff. We don't like writing the checks a lot of times. But we have some major capital projects that are going to require us to borrow money in the future. They are a new jail, a new courthouse, and a new 911 center. We have plans for the jail. We think that will be built in the next 60 months. We are working on acquiring a site, and that's going to be somewhere around, hopefully not north, but right around $20 million to build a new jail. The courthouse will be right on its heels. The concepts are designed. This building will be torn down, as well as the school board building above us when that happens. We took a raid on the kitty for a few years. Our fund balance took a hit over quite a few years, and in FY18, we decided we were going to get more serious about our financial wherewithal, and every year we have contributed money back. And that really doesn't come from any deliberate savings. It comes from good budgeting and good fiscal management by our department directors, and that's why we're able to return money every year and get our county back on solid financial footing. I love this slide because it shows two things to me: consistent improvement in our EMS system, and the other part I find fascinating is the consistent reliance on our EMS system. The call volume's going up, and our guys are making more calls. I think this is a great chart. It shows what we do, what our volunteers do, and how reliable they are. Over this period, we did start our own county backup service in July 1 of this current fiscal year. We're still struggling, not in a bad way, we're struggling to get up to par on our revenue in our EMS system. Casey's doing a fantastic job getting that work done. Our billings are coming in more consistently, and we're anticipating $400,000 of revenue from EMS billings next year. This is probably the most shocking slide. When I started putting this together, I started thinking about this commission and just the milestone of creating the body that you serve on was an accomplishment in and of itself. And then I started thinking about things you've done in 12 months. And you've revised the annual service agreement, established equipment standards, established training standards and standards for our chiefs and captains, created a new funding formula, improve our response. We had some underperforming departments a year ago, if you remember, and look how well they're doing now. All these things, and you've started working on your strategic plan. This is 12 months, and I'm going around the county talking about how great it is to have this body and to have your focus on improving our volunteer services. We did, and one reason, I don't mind telling you, one reason we had a bump right there in 2020 is because of the CARES Act funds. I mean, we got more money than we ever thought we'd ever see, $10.6 million. And some of that got carried over, so it's not exactly an accurate representation, but it should sustain going forward because we were able to save money we would have spent on other things during that period. And here's some of the things that we spent that money on. This building here, this room, we had you've been in the community center the last year. That's the best we had. And this multi-purpose room has really improved our ability to communicate with our citizens. Our new elections and training center, which is on Depot Street, which we've been using a tremendous amount, and the Board of Supervisors is now using that for their work sessions. We bought 4 new ambulances, or 5, Chris? 5 new ambulances, cash paid. I mean, how great was that? Talk about a budget relief going into this next year to know we've got a good rolling fleet of ambulances. And we've invested big time in GIS and technology. The technology in this room, the technology in our offices, and we're getting ready to dive head deep into GIS. And for those of you that know anything about GIS, it is a powerful way to figure out what's going on in the world. We bring in a lot of data just in this public safety arena, but we don't know how to use that data. We don't have a way to leverage that data. And GIS and the technology there, geospatial technology, is how we are going to start gaining insights into how we improve in both public safety, but in law enforcement, in community development, and our public relations efforts at Public Works with our water system. So we have invested heavily there. Just a couple comments about the state of the county. You're going to see a major change in our topography the next 12 to 18 months. We have 12,000 acres of permitted solar farms in the county. And I wish somebody was here I could tell. I need to show you the map of where those are and how little land is left. The Board of Supervisors in the last 12 months added a requirement that you can't have utility-scale solar projects within 5 miles of another one. And if you look at our propagation map of those 5-mile radius or 5-mile diameter circles, I can't remember which one, 5-mile radius circles, there's not much land left that is available. And that is there's really only 2 sites that I can think of that are near enough to a transmission line. But I implore you to go through Climax, see how the topography is changing, and there's going to be a lot more of that in the next 12 months. We made a big announcement last week. We are not a broadband provider. We do not provide internet. We are not in a position to provide internet. We don't own the poles. We don't own the equipment. We don't do that, just like we don't provide electricity. But we are a facilitator. And we have 11 emergency communications towers that we're making available to a private provider named River Street Networks that is building a system in our community that is shown on these maps. The green circles are what exists now. Those are live towers. Mount Airy, Hurt, or Grit maybe, I think it is, White Oak, Callens, and another one. And those that can get this signal, this is a line of sight signal. If there's trees in between you and that tower, it's not going to work. But if you can get line of sight, it is extremely reliable and fast internet service. And we've invested $1 million with River Street through our CARES Act funds to build out what you see in orange. So, and this is not a long, most internet projects take a long time. This is going to be within 12 to 18 months. We're going to build out that much more network. So we see some relief coming, but we know that work is not done. I can tell you that that River Street is heavily invested in our community. They worked on a very large project, a $33 million project, and sought federal FCC funding. It was a reverse auction funding. They were needing about, for those of you Gretna North, you may know about People's Mutual Telephone. The people in that area are going to have good internet. I mean, really, really good internet. And they got, because they won, River Street did, an amount from the federal government, let's just call it $2,000 per home, to get fiber to every home in the People's Mutual area. So most people north of Gretna are going to be in really, really good shape in the next 24 months. The rest of the county, not so much. And River Street tried to do a similar thing, a reverse auction on the rest of the county that is unserved. And unserved, I might get these numbers wrong, but I think it means that you have speed of at least or greater 25 download and 3 upload, or maybe it's 50 download and 10 upload. But FCC has that metric, and everybody that's under that metric is unserved. And so they bid on serving all those unserved areas. As you know, the landscape in broadband is changing very quickly. Elon Musk is in the game, and he bid down. They needed $1,800 a home to make it work in Pittsylvania County. That thing got bid down to $600 a home, and it happened all over our country because of Elon Musk. And I think the FCC is struggling really bad how to help rural communities now because this game-changing technology has entered the scene. And so, unfortunately, we don't have a project right now for the rest of the county, but we're working on it. And I hope within a few months we might be able to tell you about some advancements to serve the rest of our community. But the point is, we know it stinks. There's not a lot we can do, but we're working really hard to find the right people that can do it, and we're trying to partner with them and get it done. We continue to invest a lot in economic development. We've had 2,000 jobs announced and $600 million of investment announced since December 2015, and we will continue to work hard on our mega park. Can you hit that? Hit return? I want to talk to you about the reassessment. Oh, I don't have audio. No audio? I passed out a little card. Reassessment is an extremely important project. It ensures that all of us pay our fair share. And what we have learned over the past several reassessment cycles is there's a lot of people that weren't paying their fair share. And I don't know if it was on their end or if it was on our end, but we went with a different firm this year to get this work done. And it's going to be extremely detailed, and we're going to find out exactly what the measurement is, not somewhere between 20 feet and 30 feet. We're finding buildings that have been on the ground for 20 years, have never been taxed. Now, I'm not talking about homes, I'm talking about commercial businesses that have added on to their business that we never captured it, and they're not paying taxes on that stuff. So we're finding that through our reassessment project, and I'm so sorry you can't hear this because it's super cool. One of the things that the Board of Supervisors, and particularly Mr. Scares, I give him the supermajority of the credit, is that he kept insisting we've got to talk to our people more. We've got to communicate better. We've got to educate people. They don't understand what's going on in Chatham. And so it took us the best part of 3 years to get to the point where we started a public relations program. And it has taken off, and it has a life of its own in just a short 6 months. And we are doing things, and you're going to see a lot more coming from our public relations efforts. In our Brosville, we have digital message boards in quite a few of our buildings where we are getting our messages out. That is soon going to be at not all of, but certainly all of our manned collection center sites in our solid waste program, because that is the best place to see the most people. So we've already have a pilot project at the Brosville site where we have a digital message board to get our information out. We have a podcast called Pitco Happenings. We got a 15-minute segment on WKBY every Monday. We're working on a new website. Our social media presence is juiced now. But public relations, we think, is extremely important. Our budget does not fund everything everyone asked for. Here's $1 million worth of things that did not get funded that our Board of Supervisors is going to try to figure out what they're going to do with. They only have about $300,000 available, but we only funded the schools at 1/4 of their request, or actually more like 22% of their request this year. They asked for $1.1 million more. My recommendation was $250,000 more, and some of the other things that our Board of Supervisors is going to struggle with. We're on our road show right now, March 22nd to March 30th. We're doing community meetings and meetings like this. Then we'll have a public hearing and advertise. The Board of Supervisors is going to meet on March 30th to talk about adjustments to the budget, and then we'll adopt this budget on April 8th. Thank you for letting me speak, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the FY22 proposed budget.
Any questions for Mr. Smithman tonight? Thank you,
Nobody
sir.
has any questions when we don't raise taxes. So I'll see you next year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the hearing of the citizens. Each person attending the commission meeting under the hearing of the citizens, addressing the commission under the hearing of the citizens shall be a resident or landowner of the county or registered agent of such resident or landowner. Each person shall step up, give his or her name and the district in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless further time is granted by the chairman, shall limit his or her address to 3 minutes. No person shall be permitted to address the commission more than once during the hearing of the citizens. All remarks shall be addressed to the commission as a body and not to any individual thereof. Hearing of the citizens shall last for a maximum of 45 minutes. Any individual that is signed up to speak during said section who does not get the opportunity to do so because of the aforementioned time limit shall be given speaking priority at the next commission meeting. Absent chairman's approval, no person shall be able to speak who has not signed up. Mr. Flynn.
Yes, sir. We have 4 individuals. The first one would be Matt Wade, who is the Assistant Chief at Laurel Grove.
Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Wade. I currently reside down in Sutherland, Virginia, here in Pittsylvania County. I do volunteer for the fire department, not necessarily speaking on their behalf tonight, just as a taxpaying citizen of the county. I have 4 points that I want to address with the commission here, or just bring to your attention. Tonight I'm going to be referring to the business that's being conducted by Pittsylvania County with businesses here in Pittsylvania County. I'm referring to them as businesses and not fire and rescues because when you come down to taxes, that's what we're actually dealing with. The county is spending money and entering into agreements with businesses. Item number 1, these businesses are not county owned, they're not county operated, nor are they generating any type of revenue for the county. Having said that, Pittsylvania County does enter into business agreements with these fire and rescues, and it came to our attention that this new funding proposal that came up out of committee, a couple of questions that I just want to ponder with the commission here is, who was on the committee? Were the people that were on this committee members of the businesses for which the county is entering into these agreements with? Is that good business if they were? And are the taxpayers benefiting from the decisions that are being made by those people? Which brings me to my second point. Why is the county using taxpayer money to subsidize certain private businesses that are not generating any revenue for the county, even though some of them are generating money for their own business to spend however they choose to? Specifically, there are numerous businesses that the county has entered into agreements with to provide EMS services for the county. These businesses are generating revenue while providing this service, and this money is not being returned to the county after their business expenses have been subtracted so that the county can grow its own public safety department and not have to rely on the businesses that are currently performing that function. I am all for the county helping the businesses, which they enter into agreements with annually, with funding that is necessary to keep these services provided to the citizenry. But when a business is making a profit at the expense of the citizenry, you can call it soft billing or whatever you will, and then they come to the county wanting more money so that they can put that money in the bank, that's called a subsidy. Which brings me to my third point. These businesses that the county enter into these agreements with need to know what the county's 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plan is. It's hard for an organization or a business to lay out their 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plan if they don't know what the county's is. So it would really help these businesses better create their mission statement, their visions, their goals if they know what the county is wanting to do. There's a lot of the businesses that are using the excuse that the purchases they have made or that the budgets that they are currently operating on rely a whole lot or totally on the money coming from the county. And that is because there is no communication as of right now telling them what the county is expecting in the future. So if everything goes as status quo, public safety is not going to get any bigger because we're still diverting money to private businesses. If money is going to be diverted from private businesses to public safety so we can actually grow public safety, those private businesses need to know that so that they can then adjust their business models or whatever they're trying to do. The fourth and final point is volunteerism is a thing of the past. Now, if you talk to any fire chief, any officer, any of these businesses that you're doing business with, they're relying on, or supposed to be relying on, volunteers to get these calls covered, and a lot of them are actually having to use stipends or incentives to get these calls covered by these volunteers, all right? So essentially, these private businesses are paying their members to do what Pittsylvania County could pay their employees to do. But because money is going to these private businesses instead of to public safety, which is where the taxes come in, should go out, because they're going to these private businesses, the Pittsylvania County's public safety department cannot grow. And we're seeing problems in the county because of this. Number one, and I'll address this quickly, the Station 42 issue. Everybody on this commission knows about that and the recommendations that were made to that particular department and how they needed to merge with another department, right? The problem with that is, who are they going to merge with, right? We already have 4 stations going to a fire. First due, 4 stations. Now, if you merge them with another station, it's going to be one of their neighboring stations who's already coming to help them cover the call. So are we solving a problem, or are we making it look good on paper in Chatham? So volunteerism is a thing of the past. Also, one other thing, and this is a public safety issue, with having 4 stations responding, we are seeing an increase in our volunteers getting tickets because they're speeding to calls, because they're trying to go further distances, right? So I'm not saying that that's a problem the commission can address, but just know that when we do these things, having a 4th due or having a RIT team on the south end and a RIT team on the north end, and we have our members going greater distances, they're inevitably going to try to make up that time, and they're going to speed. And we've seen that, and it's been a problem that has been already cited, unfortunately, for some of these volunteers. So these are just some of the things that I just wanted to bring to you guys' attention, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Mike Elliott, Chief at Mount Cross.
Good evening. As you said, my name is Mike Elliott, Chief of Mount Cross Volunteer Fire Department. I also live in Mount Cross's area, right on Mount Cross Road. I'm here tonight for an opportunity to speak to you briefly regarding a request and a proposal. A brief history on our fire department. Our agency was established in 1962. It covers approximately 10 square miles of almost the 1,000 square miles of Pittsylvania County. We originally created as a local volunteer fire department to meet the need, protecting lives and property, which was at the time left undone. Around the year 2000, Mount Cross became an EMS transport agency with the acquisition of 2 ALS ambulances. Due to a decline in EMS personnel in 2020, we, under the advisement of our OMD and our board, reverted back to an ALS first responder agency. The county was willing to partner with us and provided us with a quick response vehicle to answer those calls and to continue to provide vital services to the citizens of our community. Mount Cross has not asked for nor received any county CIP apparatus funding in the last 15 years. Recently, a deficit was noticed in our southwest quadrant of Pittsylvania County, that there is a lack of brush trucks in our specific quadrant. As the past few weeks have revealed, brush trucks are a necessary element to assuring the appropriate response to specific calls. And gentlemen, the deficits and lack of appropriate apparatus can delay response and promote the loss of property, life, and that is not what our mission is. Our mission is to save life and save property. Our fire-based station currently has adequate spacing to house apparatus that was needed for this. So our request tonight is simple and straightforward. We're requesting up to $70,000 in fire apparatus CIP funding. This is half of the budgeted funding for one fire apparatus, which is $140,000. For the fiscal year of 2021-2022, we have priced a truck that would meet the need in our area, and it is compliant with the specifications set forward for brush truck apparatus recently adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and is fiscally responsible, in our opinion, to meet the need, not the want. This would allow the county to retain $70,000 in CIP funding to use at its own discretion. Our proposal is equally as simple and direct. We would request to expand our current apparatus partnership with Pittsylvania County. We submit that we can acquire a new brush truck that meets all required specifications for the $70,000 that we are requesting. This proposal comes in the form of requesting the county to fund the complete cost up to $70,000, retain ownership of the brush apparatus that is purchased, and brand the truck per county requirements. Furthermore, in keeping with the one team, one mission philosophy, we would request that, if approved, a review of the replacement and usefulness of this apparatus be conducted periodically and at the discretion of the county. At any time this piece of apparatus could be better served in another location, we feel the county is responsible to reappropriate this truck to another station to better serve our citizens. Thank you for your time, consideration on this matter, and I can answer any questions at this time.
Excuse me, this is gonna be a new truck
Yes, sir.
for $70,000.
Yes, sir. What it is it's a F-350 pickup truck with a service body on it, which meets the 1-ton chassis requirement. It'll have a skid unit in the back of it, lettered, emergency lighting. We feel that it'll do everything that the $140,000 brush trucks will do. This ain't as pretty, but we ain't buying a parade truck, we buying a truck for work. Anybody else?
Any other questions for the chief?
Got one quick one. Has this been brought before the Fire and Rescue Association yet?
It was sent to the Fire Rescue Association, and I haven't received any word with all of that, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief?
I have one question. Who will buy the truck? Will y'all buy it, or will the Fire and Rescue Association go out and buy it? As far as negotiating the price and purchasing it and equipping it like it needs to be?
The price is on the truck itself. The truck was priced under contract pricing that the county would could get the truck for. So I guess if it went forth and was approved, we would have to come to an agreement with the county on whether they want us to go through with the purchasing of the truck or if they want to go through with the purchasing of the truck.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Matt Hunt, who is the Assistant Chief down at Cascade.
Good evening, Board, Commission. Thank y'all for letting me speak. I'm Matt Hunt with the Cascade Volunteer Fire Department. Talked last month about us receiving the apparatus CIP funding for a tanker pumper, but it would be considered a tender in our county. There was a recommendation from the board, from the commission, to accept the association's recommendation for us. I'm just asking tonight for us to get some clarification before we end this meeting. This truck is available. I have sent some people to Minnesota to inspect it. Just a reminder, I'm just reminding everybody that it hadn't been put forth in a motion to go to the boards yet. To give a little background on what we've accomplished in the past 3 years, I did not do that at the last meeting. So far this year, we've dispatched and covered 101 calls. Last year in this same period, from January 1st through March 23rd, we were dispatched for 29 calls. So the need in our area is growing. Over the past 3 years, we've been dispatched for 365 calls, and we've covered 364 of them. So I would thank y'all for your recommendations or any questions. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them tonight.
Any questions for the chief?
I thought we had something on the last month's agenda pertaining to this that we voted on, did we?
I did too, but it was brought to my attention that it was only voted to accept the Fire Association's recommendation, that it hadn't cleared to be voted to go up to the Board of Supervisors.
I thought that's what we voted on last time, did we not?
I think it was to recognize that they were asking for the truck, but not to formally send it up, no, sir.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Brian? I didn't hear you.
I'm pretty sure that
I seconded a motion that was gonna present that to the board. I made a mistake, I guess. So I didn't understand, it wasn't a mistake, I didn't understand. I thought that we were, sending it to the board, what you had requested last time.
That was my understanding also.
And it was voted on. Check back on the minutes.
It was voted on, but my understanding too was it was to merely accept what they had presented, because we have a committee working on apparatus and looking at this rotation and funding.
If you got the motion, you can read it there for us.
Yes, sir, I'm looking for it. I got to find it in the minutes here, so.
need to go through the process again, I 100% support going through the process and voting on it right here tonight. That's what we need to do. We don't need to keep dragging our feet on it. These people need fire equipment. We need to get it to them.
Yeah, I think we're not finished with the rollout of how we're gonna do that rotation, so you can't penalize them while they were sitting and waiting. This apparatus is needed, and if this body, the association has approved, is that right, Dean?
Yes, sir.
All right, and this body's, if we approve it, of course, it's up to the Board of Supervisors to fund it, not us, but
Yeah,
I don't see why we keep
were
waiting
sending
on
it
it.
to the Board of Supervisors. I'm not questioning, how we do it down here, but if we voted on it to send it to the board, it should have went to the board.
While we're looking for it, I would also make a recommendation later for next year's proposal that we set a date when all these CIP fundings need to be turned in to the Fire Association and you guys. This year, we had to postpone it, and I understand that 100%, because in the county this year, Fire Association, along with Mr. Slimp and his department, Public Safety, we set guidelines on what a pumper would be and what a tanker would be throughout the whole county. So this year, we had to wait till February to vote on that and to get everything set out. But I think it would be fair to you guys and Public Safety and ourselves as Volunteer Fire Department Rescues that everyone should have this date that we need to shoot for instead of everything dragging out.
I think, Matt, I think you're exactly right. We need to streamline the process, but I think this committee that's working on the funding rotation will take care of that. That way you don't have to, you actually know what agency's in line next for the money, so you don't have to sit there and several people apply and kind of come up and fight for your money. I think that's, if I'm misspeaking, Chris can correct me, but
You
I
are
think.
correct.
That's
We,
what-
nothing could be funded till July 1 anyway. No money can be, there's no funds that'll be available till July 1.
I don't remember us talking about that. We should have talked about it at the last meeting if that was the case.
Yeah, I'm aware that they're not available till July 1.
Yeah,
I
I was
just-
not aware of that.
I just need to know, I'd like to know if we were approved, and that's what I was asking. And I know no funding can be sought after until July 1.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scarry.
Mr. Chairman, as a Finance Committee Chairman for the Board, I just want to say, I don't have any problem approving your recommendation, but just keep in mind that until we approve the county budget for next year, and I don't even know what the CIP numbers are for, that have been budgeted yet, so just keep in mind until the board approves that budget, there's no, again, even until July 1st, no money is going to be allocated until then, but if, once we pass the budget, there'll be a better opportunity to know what money's available to pay, give for the CIP function. So again, I don't think there's a problem with us recommending the approval of whatever the Fire Association approved earlier. But again, just keep in mind, that's no guarantee that the money's going to be there until we approve the budget. So I just want to make sure that you're fully aware of that.
We're not going to go out and purchase a truck until you guys say, hey, you got it. It's July, whatever, you got it. But we're just, my understanding was that there were 2 trucks that were CIP funded, and I'm just trying to make sure I follow up on it.
Sure, yeah. I just want to make sure that, even if this commission does go ahead and approve this tonight, we still have to make sure the budget gets approved with that funding available, so.
Chief, is somebody holding this truck for you, or you just,
They're holding it for me right now.
so
I'm aware.
are they aware of the, like Mr. Scare said, it's not gonna be available till July?
No,
Is that
it
gonna put
won't be
you in
available
any
July
kind of
1st.
hardship, or,
We're
You know.
going to have to put a deposit down on it.
sir?
Us as a station is going to put a deposit down on it.
Okay.
I just need to make sure that I don't get myself into something and then we back out of the funding and then Cascade stuck with.
Okay, I was just
That
making
logical
sure,
payment.
that with the funds not being available to July, was it a chance that you would lose your truck that you had already spec?
Yeah, we've already had it inspected once, and I've got engine guys going out and inspecting engine samples and tranny samples and pump test and all that stuff. That's the second phase, but that costs money too that we are
So,
carrying.
but you all are gonna put a deposit on it to hold it, just,
Mhm.
okay.
So is and this is more for the Fire and Rescue Association, if you just had two departments request money, Mount Cross and Cascade, is that the only two that's requested?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, then I'm not real, Mr. Chairman, I'm not real sure if that's the only two requested, we've got there's two trucks available. One of them's not even is not even requesting the full amount. I mean, if we didn't vote last time, I mean, I would say we need to vote now. I mean, it's just a recommendation, it's still based on the budget. We all understand that sometimes with county budget, then we'll just have to come back and address that, but this is just a recommendation. Is that?
Yes, and I'm not seeing it in here, but I do remember you making it because we had moved on down the line and we came back to that in that meeting. And I know there was a motion, and I'll have to go back and view the tape, but I do know there was, but I'm not seeing it in there. But I know there was a motion that was passed at that time to accept the recommendation. I do remember that, absolutely. So,
Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion that we take a vote on what we did last month and move forward with this purchase. A recommendation for this purchase.
I don't know if we can take action in this part or not. That's a question for Vaden, under where we're at, if that would have to be something we add.
You're not supposed to take action from hearing citizens. We could just be here all day with people asking for wish lists. I'll tell you, we have a finance committee on the 30th of this month. Our promise to you is we'll bring forward these recommendations. I have no clue if we have the money for them or what the finance committee's pleasure is going to be. So as far as buying a truck, thinking you're going to get money, you may get money, but I would advise you, you're doing that at your own peril at this point. So we will address these at the 30th meeting, but we have a budget. We're in the budget process, and what we've heard today is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of needs, and we're not sure we have the money for them, but we will discuss it and attempt to make everybody happy that we can.
Thank you, sir.
We wasn't voting to buy a truck last month. We were voting to recommend this, for this committee to recommend that truck purchase to the supervisors meeting. We wasn't voting to buy a truck. We voted for the same
Correct.
thing they're asking for
Correct.
tonight, for it to be presented to the Board of Supervisors. If they voted down, that's passed. That's beyond us.
Correct. That is correct.
So what is the, what's
What I'm
the
saying
problem
is,
with
I
the way
don't
it's been
think in
presented?
this,
So my understanding is in the hearing of the citizens, we can't have any action taken. as
Mr.
far as
Chairman,
motions, seconds,
so-
and such as that.
you would have to, later on, we can do that.
Yeah, that would have to be added into an agenda item specifically where we could take action. We're not allowed to take any action under the hearing of the citizens. It's basically hearing what they're talking and asking.
Okay.
And then we bring that up at a later date. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, you can do that, yes.
Who's next?
All right, you got one more. Mike Neal, Chief of Ringo.
Good evening. My name is Mike Neal, I'm Fire Chief, Ringo Fire and Rescue, Vice President of Fire and Rescue. So basically on item 10 coming up tonight is your funding for your 22 agency funding, okay? And basically just a few comments I want to make on that. Last association meeting, and Dean speaks next, he'll speak on that. Each fire chief was sent a list or a copy as a recommendation to look at how you was funding each department, okay? So my concerns, and I think we're doing good, okay? I'm not knocking fire and rescue. I think we're headed in the right direction. But at the end of the day, listen to these facts and figures, okay? I mean, you got to look outside the box sometimes. So at the end of the day, COVID's been a terrible thing, but the county was blessed to get a chunk of money on the CARES Act, okay? And if I'm wrong, somebody tell me. My understanding is fire and rescue got about $2.3 million, or public safety, on money to help on that end of it. So at the end of the day, we got 4 ambulances coming, roughly $225 apiece. Okay, that's $900,000. We're gonna build a station in Hurt, which they need, okay? $800,000 to house ambulances, no rescue squad in Hurt, and the county's having to cover that. And that's good, okay? So that's $1.7 million that was put in the county's hands. Somewhere along the line, you'd have had to build a station in Hurt because they sitting up in a building and got an awning outside with a truck under it, or even they got it in the Hurt station now, okay? Down the road, you're just gonna have to buy these backup trucks in the county. We got one at Chatham now, Pittsylvania County Public Safety. So they went out and they put one at Broswell and one at Callens and one at Chatham, okay? Since 1996, and Mr. Hunt referred to it as a wish list, and I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying, since 1996, the county has given money for fire trucks and ambulances. All y'all know that, a lot of you do, okay? So that's why Matt Hunt and Elliott's here tonight asking for the money, okay? They do 2 ambulances a year, 2 fire trucks. It's been like that forever, okay? So at the end of the day, you got a truck at Broswell, you got a truck at Callens, and you got one at Chatham. That's $90,000 in the next 3 years that you ain't got to spend if you continue doing that. So between that and the money that's saved, this year they didn't give no money for ambulance in the county. First time since '96, the county gave no money. Last year they gave 90 and 90. That's $180,000 savings. You go back and look at the fire truck money. You got 1 fire truck that Cascade asked for tonight. Mike asked for 70. You still short 70,000. So that's $250,000. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, we're basically looking at $2 million that the county is not having to spend this year and what you got coming to you and going forward, okay? So that's good. I'm not knocking that. That's good. My thing is when we done the agency funding, it's lab agencies out of 24 that's getting a cut. How can you plus yourself $2 million this year, in essence, and you're gonna cut lab agencies? Now, some of them are not big cuts, but I think everybody should stay where they at. I think when Dean comes up, you're gonna hear some of that. And you got some agencies cut $450, $1,000, $4,000, $6,000. But at the end of the day, it's 11, half of your department in this county is getting a cut. I worked at Goodyear 42 years in management, and 1 year, they called me up and said, hey, I'm gonna cut your pay. I got held off on a merit raise time or two, you know, for issues. It ain't many of you in here working to get a pay cut. And basically, these are businesses like he said, and you're getting a pay cut, okay? Your electricity bills are still up there. Your propane's going up. Your diesel's going up. I got the same building, same number of pieces of equipment. And then going forward, hopefully we can stay where we at. Now, let me say this, and I'll get out of your way. Bottom line is 11 people getting cut. 3 of them have given up services in the county since last year. So I understand them getting cut. Smith Mountain, everything going on up there, you know, between Franklin County and Pittsylvania County, and trying to get them to hold their end up, I understand that. So at the end of the day, that's 5 agencies that if they get cut, it's a reason for it, okay? But it's still 6 more out there that, in my opinion and the fire chief's opinion, should at least stay where they at a minimum. And the ones that got the increase, you know, they've looked at them and see they need an increase, and that's good, okay? So we're saying let's try to keep the others at a minimum. And one quick question for Chris. The call volume, are you basing that on initial dispatch, you know, for calls? And how about the gentleman just mentioned 2nd, 3rd, and 4th due for house fires? We don't get credit?
No, it's almost like, how do I say this? The way you have to track that is near impossible. I mean, we can, but it takes a long time to track all that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if I get punched out back Kentucky up for a structure, I'm getting a 911 call, my page is going off, I'm running lights and siren to the house fire. Sometimes you get that before they do, but I don't get credit for a dispatch. That, in my opinion, should be in the calls, backup rescue also. I'm just throwing that out there.
We do track backup rescue, that we do.
Okay. Anybody got any questions on what I said? Anybody?
So what you're saying, Chief Neal, is that once you go on that second and third due call, it's costing you money, but you're not recouping your costs back?
Technically, yeah, I mean, I'm doing the same thing running second, third, and fourth due if I do first due, technically. You know, I might take a truck or so less, but I'm still taking fire equipment and firemen, you know. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Fire Rescue Association report, Chief Fowler.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to ask to be deferred until we get ready to talk about the FY '22 agency funding. That's the only thing I have from the association to discuss.
All right, we'll defer to that section and come back to you when we get there.
Thank you.
County staff report.
Thank you, sir. Just a few things to report very quickly. I have no new news on Cool Branch. They're still negotiating with Franklin County. That is proceeding, however. COVID vaccinations, just more of an FYI. We are working with VDH and VDM, and we're working on getting a site in the north end where we would do vaccinations and get a clinic going on, hopefully up in the Gretna area very soon to service that north end. We have demographics that tell us we need to be up in there. All the agencies this month have been undergoing their licensing inspections. We've gotten positive reviews from the inspector. Feedback's been good. If you haven't been inspected, I'll forewarn you, he is incredibly thorough, probably one of the most thorough guys I've seen in the 30-some years I've been doing this, but he's also very fair. He'll spend some time explaining things. He's not looking to harm you in any way. He's been great to deal with. Big thank you to Danville Life Saving Crew for letting us be a part of their Super CE weekend. We were able to beam that to 3 locations in the county. Casey, I'll give Casey credit there. She had worked really hard to set that up, and we had roughly between 15 and 20% participants at those sites every day. Really appreciate the fact that we could be a part of that. We're going to continue to be a part of that. Had some great classes there. And we've also, lastly, as you know, Dr. Borro's our OMD, but he had moved. He's still going to be a part of the system and being an OMD, but we've also signed a memorandum of agreement with Dr. Kayla Long, who is at Gretna ER, to be OMD for us, so we'll have one local. And she has got a rescue squad background. Also, she's the OMD for a Centris Flight Program and Campbell County Public Safety. So we've signed on with her and gotten that effective as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that brings us to unfinished business, which is the FY '22 agency funding. Before Mr. Schlimp comes up, Chief Fowler, I'm going to go back to you now because this is where we deferred you to because this is part of what your report was going to be on. So.
Okay, so the proposal was brought back to the fire chiefs, and we discussed it at the last meeting last Wednesday night. And the concern is some of the agencies that are taking the cuts, it's going to be detrimental to their operation due to the fact they're obligated to some of those funds financially. Another issue with it, some of them that are taking cuts are running a substantial amount of mutual aid calls that wasn't counted in this process, that if so, would have moved them into a different category for their funding. And that was brought up as a concern. So I think we need to take a look at that. But the overwhelming majority would like to ask that the funding be froze where it is. The agencies that are due or proposed to have cuts be froze at this time. And that could be froze to the point that substantial increases over the next few years, leave them froze until they get to that level median that they should be at for the proposed call volume that they're running.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Schlimp.
Thank you, sir. So with that, just so you understand, there's only, in next year's budget, hold on, I'm looking at something here. There's no way to increase the increases we have, that we've got on paper, and leave the ones that would lose frozen. That math ain't gonna work out. There's no way to make that work. There's not enough money proposed in next year's budget to do that. So, one of the options is obviously you pass what's been presented, or we go back to the drawing board and look at it a little bit and see what else we can come up with. The three gentlemen that were on the committee with me are to your right, and I think they may want to chime in as well, so.
I think our idea was, when we made this recommendation, was that the increased call volume would, the agencies that were cut, that the increased call volumes would actually get their revenue up by the end of the year. Now, that was no guarantee that that will happen, but that was what we were thinking when we presented this as a recommendation. The call volume is, I think, will increase the money that they're getting. That was what I thought, but that's no guarantee.
Like I said, you know, the only thing I can tell you is we can go back to the drawing board and look at it and bring something back again next month, but there's a limited amount of money, and that is it. We don't have but so much more to go. So if we're going to increase somebody, either we split that little bit among those agencies, or you have to rob Peter to pay Paul. There's no other way to balance that out.
It appears to me that the agencies aren't on board with this, which is fine. That's your prerogative. Maybe we should look at it a little more with their input, more of their input.
We can do that. I think, you know, you're going to have winners who are going to be all in favor of it, and you're going to have some that would lose who are going to be opposed to it. I don't know how we're going to balance that out. We can certainly look at that. There's some, we can run a couple other ideas that are not on this. I mean, there's some other ideas we can look at too. But, you know, if we're going to center it around call volume, you know, you have some agencies that run on a plethora of calls, and you have some that run very minimal. And, you know, if we're going to be doing it that way, it's never going to be
And our
equal.
thought was that the smaller fire departments needed a certain amount of money.
Correct.
We couldn't cut them so much, because they still got stations they've got to maintain, they've got trucks. You know, they still got a certain amount of overhead. And we give a lot of things consideration when we came up with this proposal. And, you know, it was 10 different proposals we could have brought to you, and none of them would have suited everybody here. But we worked very hard at it, and we can go back and try, and maybe we need different people on the committee. Maybe we needed more input, but, you know, this committee was appointed, and that's what we really thought was a good recommendation. With the amount of money that is out there, I don't know if we met 3 more times how we could redistribute it and make it work out more fair than what we did. We gave it a lot of thought.
Yeah, to add to the gentleman, I sat on this committee a year ago when we picked this up and said we needed to re-look at how we're going to distribute our money, and it ain't easy, guys. You either just got to leave it like it is and say it is the way it is, or we got to make these tough decisions. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I didn't sit on the committee this year, and I won't sit on the committee going forward with it, because I have been on it, and we couldn't come up with anything that was acceptable. So I am a volunteer fire chief outside of here, and I know we need our money just as well as everybody else. So I try to take that in consideration. And I told Chris the same thing a year ago. I said, I can't, in my right conscience, vote for something taking money from one agency to pay my agency more. But at the end of the day, where do you say we go by data, or we just go off and hip and pay whoever, whatever? I mean, you know, that's the hard bridge you got to find to cross.
Hey, it won't easy for me telling Mike Neal he's gonna get a cut at Ringgold either.
If you gentlemen want, we can go back one more time. I mean, the budget's not been approved yet. There's still, you know, that's still in transition there too. So we can go back one more time and bring that in. I mean, I did do some math over the weekend and found one way that we could also set a limit, like no agency would get a bigger increase than X amount, and no agency would get a loss greater than a certain amount. And I can make that work within the budget. We can look at that, and of course a couple other ideas. Mr. Smithman gave me a pretty good idea on call volume the other day that we can go back and look at too. So if you want us to reconvene, we can certainly do that.
That was my thinking. You know, I didn't know, it's hard for me to believe that it's that much swing. I mean, I know it's, like I said, with call volume, and it's, like I said, the agencies running more calls, honestly, they deserve more money. But the smaller agencies have their budget set up on a very minimal amount.
Correct.
And if they take I'm just using the Cool Branch, they take a $16,000 hit, that's a lot out of their budget that they gotta find somewhere. And not not preparing for it, but, you got one agency gaining almost 25 grand and one agency losing 16 grand. It's hard for me to believe that you would give one agency more than the agency was to lose. And I guess that's what you're saying, you might could make it.
Yeah, we could put some minimums, maximums. I think it took a lot of math over the weekend, but I think I figured out how to do it and keep it within the budget realm and try to distribute the wealth as best we can. I mean, that's something we can obviously look at. And like I say, Mr. Smithman gave me another idea the other day about a totally different, out of the box of something to do. So if they're agreeable, we can get back together and talk some more.
Vaden, as a point of order for this, as a committee bringing this to us, it already comes presented with, as a motion with a second as a committee of three. Is that correct? By Robert's Rules of Order?
You don't need a second if it comes from a committee.
So my question would become, at this point, if they want to revisit it, they have to withdraw this. Is that correct? Because it's a motion on the floor that's already been given to us as a body. They have to withdraw that. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
you could just make a motion to send this back to the committee for further, discussion and work, and bring it back at a future meeting when you're ready.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen?
And I just want to add one more thing. Mr. King hit it pretty much on the head. It's just, I think when this document went out, it was kind of a shell shock because there is some agencies that are getting a significant increase, and I'm sure they were very happy. And just for the record, I mean, it's near here or there, the little bit amount it was going to affect Gretna, so I'm not swayed either way on it. I'm trying to do what's best for the volunteers. Mr. King was right. Some of these smaller agencies that have their budget kind of already preset, this was such a swing and such short notice. That's where the gripe come from, and I can see their point. I see their side. So I definitely think it needs to go back one more time. Not that the committee, I think the committee did an excellent job putting something together. So I can make that motion if I need to send it back to the committee for reevaluation and bring something back to this commission.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to send it back to the committee for review. Any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chairman, just,
Yes, sir.
Chris, do you have numbers if we were to leave agencies at their current funding and add the amount of money you want to add, give to the higher call stations? Do we have any idea what kind of money we're talking?
No, it's not off the top of my head, but I can certainly work some stuff out.
If the numbers in red on the proposal are right, it's $64,723, I believe it is, and
62.
the proposal also has a proposal for $15,500 increase to the budget, which is $79,800.
So we're roughly, if we were to keep every agency funded at last year's funding and give the extra money, it'd be about an 80,000 price tag. Just trying to get ideas for.
And that would, again, without sitting down and doing the math myself, I would say at least that, yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'll give us an opportunity when Finance Committee reconvenes, we can kind of hash this around. I think there is some funding. We have other, certain things that have been requested, and we have a limited amount of money, and we might be able to come up with some kind of way to work this out. But I don't know at this point how much of this we would be able to fund if we were trying to leave every agency at their current. But I agree. I think it's pretty bad that they're going to get hit with a shortfall, and they weren't expecting it this year. I don't know how much this was publicized before we handed them the numbers, but I don't think some of the agencies in my district, they won't be real. I know they're probably not real happy with the cuts because they rely on that money every year. So, but I'll go ahead, Chairman. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Any other discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Are we subject to any deadlines that I don't know about?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are we subject to any deadlines as far as budget goes?
I think I can address that. It's so far before we start the new year. You know, we will adopt an amount of money, but on April 8th, I think it is. But then we have until July 1st to work out the details. We'll know what we're trying to solve for because we have an amount of money budgeted. And the rejiggering of that money, you know, is not a big deal. That's what your committee is charged with. And then when do the first payments go out?
Not till August.
So you really have until August.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you. All right, new business, Board of Supervisors Communications, Supervisor Scarce.
All right, this past board meeting, we approved the memorandum of agreement between the Public Safety Department and Dr. Long for OMD services. We also approved, gave approval for public safety to submit a Rescue Squad Assistance Fund grant for the purchase of a Lucas chest compression system to be used on the QRV serving the 640 response area. We also approved $140,000 in CIP funding to Brownsville Fire and Rescue to purchase a fire apparatus. They have signed the CIP agreement. The funding is contingent upon presentation of a corresponding sales contract to public safety. And then finally, the board's finance committee received David Smitherman's county administration, the county administrator, the fiscal year 22 county budget, and at its March meeting. And let's see, during that presentation, I want to commend the Fire Commission. David gave us a good breakdown of what we've accomplished this past year, and I just want to thank you guys for the hard work. I know it's not easy a lot of times dealing with the issues we have to deal with, but we have a lot of bullet point accomplishments, and I appreciate everything you guys have been doing to help our community. It's a big plus. Hand in hand with the Fire and Rescue Association, I think working well with that organization, we've accomplished a lot this year, and I just want to thank everyone for that.
Thank you, sir. Public Safety Code of Ethics and Conduct, Director.
Thank you, sir. Over the past couple months, I've had some of the board members tell me that they wanted to see some type of code of conduct and maybe ethics among our volunteer fire and rescue, especially some of our leadership positions, based on some events of the past year. So I worked on putting a code together. I want it right now. This is not for action right at this point. It's for your review to give me some feedback. Then we'll send it out to the association for some feedback as well. But I think it's something that would apply to everyone that operates in our public safety system. And, you know, we are seen as those who should be maintaining the public trust. I mean, we go into people's homes when they're at their very worst. And, you know, we've had some incidents this year that have created some issues that we didn't have a code of conduct and really needed one. So this is before you for review and comment. If you consensus, if you like what you see, I'd like to present that on forward and send it on into the volunteer ranks and to the association for review as well, and any suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So as we all look through, is there any discussion on the Code of Ethics draft?
I have some comments.
Yes, sir.
Definitions, conduct-related violation. I call that a word salad. I think we ought to be able to clarify that some.
You like more specific, or?
It's just legalese. An act or acts which constitutes a violation or failures to comply with any duty, obligation, or requirement imposing the standard of conduct or behavior on personnel by virtue of the provisions of any criminal or civil law or statute or any rule or regulation authorized and promulgated pursuant thereto, provided such violations or acts of noncompliance. In fact, it ends in a adverb, doesn't it? Is it just me, or could that be written better?
It could, and I'll tell you, I stole that definition from some codes I was looking at, so we could rephrase that. If you, I think you want it like more specific, is what you're trying to say.
And Code of Ethics on the next page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets down. Be truthful and honest at all times and report instances of cheating or other dishonest acts that compromise the integrity of the fire service. I suggest report any acts, doesn't have to be cheating or dishonest, any acts that compromise the integrity of emergency services, not just fire services. Any acts that compromise the integrity of the emergency services, or something to that effect. This is geared to all services, not just fire, not just rescue. It's for everybody, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And on the next page, never harass or intimidate firefighters. That would include all EMS personnel.
Actually, that's a good catch. I did miss that. That should say emergency responders or first responders, something of that nature.
And the second to the last bullet, all members will at times respect the property and rights of all men and women, the laws of their community and their country, and the chosen way of life of their fellow citizens. Don't know what that's all about. I mean, do we need to have country in there? Isn't this the United States?
We don't have to, but we could.
Those are my comments.
Okay.
And mine was about it's a couple here that says never do anything. I mean, you know, to me, and I just use, you know, involving in alcohol, they want to sit there. I mean, you're trying to be a volunteer, you can't, you know, if anybody wants to drink a beer at their house, that's their business. But, you know, and I understand that not being a public nuisance and not being not being on the call, that's definitely a no-no, but, you know, that's kind of.
That's referring.
Maybe your word was maybe, you know, just.
That's before, that, when you read on in there, that would do something to impair your performance of your duties.
Yeah, but I
So
mean,
it would be something like you're on duty or on call. or
Okay,
something
that would
like
say if you're on duty or on
Yes, sir.
call, I can
Yes,
see
sir.
that.
Yes, sir.
But it says never without.
So we can clarify that in there more too.
Okay, and, you know, they propose of any personal rewards, you know, I agree with that, but what about you go to a restaurant and somebody wants to give these volunteers a free meal? That's taking a reward. And,
It
you know,
is
that
technically.
does all the time.
And it happen, you're right, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
So
you know,
where
we
did
don't
you
wanna
see,
be in
where is that?
violation.
Paragraph right above that, Chris.
But Adam says it may create a conflict of interest.
It's paragraph right above the one with the alcohol.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, okay.
But I do believe that one's referring to, as it says, may create a conflict of interest.
Yeah. The one, I just, you know.
I think accepting the meal doesn't create the conflict of interest. I think that's a point where I'll give you a vacation, you buy a truck type thing.
Inside the trade.
Yeah.
I think it's a good document, it just maybe needs a little
We can
cleaning up a little bit.
wordsmith some more of that, yes, that's fine.
You know, just a little wordage change, you know. And with this, does this, if something comes up with a member, and I think I read this somewhere in there, but actually it would come to, if I had a problem with the firefighter or anybody at Calvin's, it would come to our board first and then come to you?
It should be handled internally initially, yes. And most of the time it is. Occasionally I get a phone call requesting
But, I
help
mean, you know,
or let me know
on
about
these-
something.
If it's criminal or something like that, yeah, guess what?
Yeah.
We gotta handle it, then it's got to come to you.
Yeah.
But, you know, most stuff, you know, it needs to, even if it comes to you, it should come back to us and then.
And I do get
we're
some
gonna
that
handle this.
come direct to me, and I call that chief or that president saying, hey, I've got this situation, you need, you know, they deal with it. I've had that a couple times recently, and that chief or captain says, I'll take care of it, won't be a problem. And they'll normally let me know back, hey, we followed up and we've taken care of it.
But
So,
at the same token, that if that department chooses not to handle it, then it should go to you.
mhm,
It's handled.
mhm.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Well, I think, Chris, you said this is just for just to bring it to us to review and.
Yeah, I wanted
We don't
some
really need to move
consensus.
any action on this, right?
Yeah, I don't need action, just wanted consensus. You've given me some feedback, which is good. I can clean that up if you're good. I want to move it forward, and I'll send it out to the volunteer leadership to review.
All right, number 3 under new business is EMS billing rates discussion.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was a last minute added to the agenda. We was trying to get it in. So I just want to say thank you to Chuck Angier, Tim Duffer, Chris Slimp, for working hard on this committee. We met via email because we have so many meetings we all attend, but we had a lot of good engaged conversation on there. And Chuck, he was a hoot. I thought I'd upset him at one point, but we were good. So, but we put together, we went and reviewed. What I did was I reviewed 10 different agencies around the county here. Well, 9, the 10th one was the county, and put it in a little sheet for them and sent it to them. And just kind of to review where we stand with our mileage, our BLS rates, our ALS rates, and our non-transports. And we actually stack up pretty close to everybody around us. We did see an adjustment need to be made to our BLS rate. So I guess the recommendation, and it comes already as a motion with a second from the committee, correct?
No, technically, the motion is written just so you know how to word the motion, if that's what you want to
Okay,
do.
so we
you
need to
still
make that here.
Correct.
Okay, so.
It's coming from a committee though, right? So it doesn't require a second, it comes as a motion, actually.
Yeah, it could, if you wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, because you did create an ad hoc committee with
Yes,
us.
sir.
So that's how I thought that would. And just so everybody knows, the audience and the commissioners, the only change is the BLS rate going from $550 a transport to $600. Everything else is the same. One thing we wanted to reiterate before we make the motion and push it through, though, guys, make sure for your volunteer agencies that you're doing a good QA on your calls before you send them in for billing. Make sure we're getting all the information we need so that we can maximize our returns. There was a lot of good conversation points that people brought up that I think we need to look at going forward and possibly bring back to this body. And I think this needs to continue to be reviewed every year to stay in line with the going rates. But and Tim and Chuck and Chris, y'all interject at any time. But I guess I can say we worked hard on this, and the only change is the BLS rate.
So this comes from the ad hoc committee, so it is a motion, doesn't need a second. So is there any discussion on the billing rate adjustment?
The mileage rate, that's a loaded mile?
Yes, that is your loaded transport miles. So you can only bill for when the patient's in the back of the ambulance. And I do stand corrected, guys. When I sent that to y'all, I put $15 a mile. We was already at 16, I believe, because I just checked my billing schedule with my billing company. Because when I seen it, I said I must have made a mistake, and I do have ground mileage is at 16 for last year. So the only change would be the BLS transport rate, which is $600. Go from $550 to $600.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the billing rate change as proposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And if I can clarify one thing, that will still have to go before the board to be approved, and that would not be effective till July 1 with the new budget, just so you know.
So as a point of clarification on prior business, do we need to revisit the motion at any point about the truck for Cascade?
If you're going to, now's the time.
That's what I was asking.
We can do
Yes,
that,
sir.
yes.
All right.
What are we doing?
The discussion we had involving the Cascade request from last meeting, now is the time. I'm sorry.
If you
Yes,
want to
sir.
talk about the Cascade truck or any things that were talked about during hearing of the citizens, all you need to do is amend the agenda and make those new agenda items. And so you would be able to give a recommendation to the board to discuss at a future finance meeting or board meeting. So I know we have Cascade. We had a couple other issues where people desired some funding. So if you want, the board wants to make formal recommendations about those, just amend the agenda, have discussion, get some formal motions up to the board so the board knows what the desire of this body is so they can potentially act on it.
Are
okay?
we allowed to amend the agenda on the fly right now?
Yes, you just have to have a vote and a second discussion.
I'd like to make a motion that this committee approves recommends a truck to the Board of Supervisors for the Cascade.
So we need to amend the agenda. We need a motion to amend the agenda to include the discussion on these issues now.
Prior to the motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to amend the agenda?
So I'll make a motion to amend the agenda for the purposes of this discussion.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Here we are. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure? We've got two things we've talked about tonight in discussion in the hearing of the citizens. We've got a request from Cascade, and we have the discussion from Mount Cross regarding the brush apparatus. What is your pleasure? We'll go one at a time.
So I got a question. In the current fire and rescue budget, and that's before, I realize that's before the board approves it, but right now, as written, you've got it approved for, like it was last year, 2 trucks for CIP, 2 trucks to go to whoever requested. Because, we hadn't met, the truck committee or the equipment committee hadn't officially put something, so, you're basing that off of,
What was approved, well,
I know it hadn't been approved, but
what was requested, I requested for the coming year, $450,000 for fire apparatus. What was proposed now that's current is $160,000. So that's what we have to split between, if we do 2 trucks roughly right now.
160,000 split between the two agencies?
If that's what, as of today, that's what's in there proposed.
and that's just fire, is that fire and?
No, well, that's fire apparatus, yes, sir. But, and let me say this, remember, one of the things, if it could come, if we consider it, was a brush truck, so it would not get the normal, I don't think we'd fund that at the $140,000. And Cascade was buying a used truck, correct? So, those are things we still might be able to work all that out with that amount of money. That's still a possibility.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I've tried to make a motion 3 times, I'm gonna hold off.
You got it. Go ahead, sir. You got it. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we send a request up to the Board of Supervisors to fund the truck for Cascade that they've requested tonight.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for Cascade. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good.
So is we made an addendum to the agenda because we felt like we voted on this last. Does the Mount Cross request need to just come as an agenda item next meeting?
That's totally up to y'all. We can.
I mean, I think we was trying to clarify something from our last meeting, but I feel like the Mount Cross is a separate agenda item. That just needs to go back through I mean, I agree with it, but I just want to, I think, for the interest of the meeting.
Does that need to go before the fire association first?
Yeah.
It did.
Chief Fowler, to the association, what was y'all's recommendation on with the funding of the brush truck?
It never was addressed. There was nobody there to represent it, and there was no specifics on whether it met the specifications. Chris Slimp had the paperwork. Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong. You didn't know any of the particulars at the time, correct?
Right. Correct. Well, the original request did not meet the standard. It was presented before we created the standards. So, and then when it came back, there was nobody there to represent. And we didn't have or we didn't have everything we needed to do it. So, since that time, I know y'all have changed that, or Mount Cross has changed it and brought it into the specifications of what has been approved since that time.
I mean, we've got, sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
In the budget process, do they have time to do it at the next association meeting?
So the money is appropriated under that line item for apparatus, but it's not designated per agency per se yet with any physical amount attached to it. Is that correct, Mr. Smitherman? Thank you. Yes, sir, they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I say, I think we made our amendment because we were trying to clarify something from the last meeting. I think for Mount Cross, it just needs to go through the process.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, I don't have an issue with it. I just think it needs to go through the process.
Not a problem. Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I think some of this is going to get better or more clarified because in these guys' defense, they sort of don't know what the process is to request this money because it's kind of been wishy-washy.
Yeah.
And so with this committee that we have now that's diligently working on a funding rotation, you won't see this problem in the future going forward, or hopefully that's going to be the result. But for now, though, I agree with Mr. Duffer. I think that's an agenda item for next go-around.
All right, we will go to matters from the commissioners. I'll start to my left, Mr. Meeks.
Yes, sir. So two things I had on my list here I wanted to discuss. One of them I've already called and talked to Chris about is mutual aid in the county. And I think he probably can add in anytime he wants to. But the way the paging system works off the GIS and stuff, sometimes the departments that get dispatched to calls makes you scratch your head. And I'm going to give you an instance. We had, I don't remember the day, but it was last week, we had a house catch fire. It was an entrapment, ended up being a fatal fire. Just so happened to be several members of Chatham Fire Department. It was some of their kinfolk. We were 8.7 miles from that scene, and Chatham Fire, which was the first due station there, was like 7.6 or whatever. So it was within a mile of our of being the same distance as the first due station, but yet we did not even get put on the run until the Donald Motley, the chief of Chatham Fire, got on scene and requested us. So and by that time, it would have been 5th or 6th due. Not saying we would have changed the outcome. It was very tragic what happened, and everybody that came did a great job. Appreciate those departments. But the way the dispatch went there, and so maybe Chris can allude to this, and I'm not saying that this body needs to do anything about it. I'm just trying to make it aware that there needs to be some updates on mutual aid and with the paging system and how we're sending departments, where we're sending them to, because there's no reason why we should not have been second due to that call. And that's happened throughout the county on several other occasions. Chris, do you want to touch on any of that? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, I can.
Me and him talked about this, so that's...
The problem isn't the dispatch itself, the problem is the grid system. our grid systems are huge. And since I've been here, I've been trying to get those cut in half, if not divided into threes. And I'm trying to figure a way to make you understand that. So imagine that these little X's here in the floor are homes, and this is a grid system. And some of the grids in that case, that grid was on the very north point of that grid. So it recommended agencies in that grid, but most of those agencies are on the other end of that grid that respond. So in a similar situation, you know, if this were the grid and the fire was up here, I may be the fire station, yeah, I'm closer, but I may not be attached to that grid because the way the grids were drawn years ago, everybody on the other end of the grid is the primary or second and third and fourth due into that grid. So it works great for the first due, but it doesn't work very well for second, third, fourth, and fifth dues. I know it's a problem. It's a problem I've been trying to get fixed. I do not control the GIS like to be able to fix some of it at this point. The new GIS system is going to allow us to fix it. That was one of the reasons that we entered into trying to get that, because it'll give us some control to alleviate that. We want to, or I do, want to downsize those grids even smaller, because then we can get into a grid and we can also start deciding in identifying what grids have or do not have hydrants, so we can add extra equipment to the grid. So it's a big undertaking to cut those grids in half, and unfortunately the county only has one GIS person at this point to do that with. So we will have some more control over that in the near future as we switch to this new GIS system. And it is probably our top priority to fix, because we know it's a problem and it needs to be fixed. So yes, it's not the first time we've had that issue.
Yeah. And I just wanted to shed some light on it to you guys so that, because, I mean, I had several people, you know, family members included, that, you know, not that we probably would have changed the outcome of the situation, and it's happened elsewhere, but just to shed some light on it, I'm glad that the county is moving to improve this, because, again, and then I'll move on from this topic, we're second due to the Ag Center. This house is 1.8 miles from the Ag Center with fifth due. Tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't. So, but that was the first topic. The second topic was, and this wasn't on my list until I just sat here and continued to hear things. So, and I'll probably get booed for this one, but it's okay. So I just first want to start off saying these guys do a great job. County staff, the backup for the volunteers, public safety system, whatever you want to call them. They do an excellent job. And I take nothing from them. And I want to go back to the mission or the motto, one service, one team. That one service, one team includes, there we go, I'll get my right words in a minute, the volunteers, the dispatchers, the public safety system, all working together. But, you know, sometimes we kind of forget about the volunteers. They're a major part of that system. And Mr. Scaris, he hit it earlier on the head. Don't know if it's doable for talking about the funding schedule for that $80,000. But I would just be interested to know how much money is in the budget for an increase to public safety next year. Again, not taking anything from them, but positions added, equipment added, things like that. I guarantee you it's a lot more than $80,000. That being said, the service that the volunteers put in this county, and as the gentleman said earlier, they do get a return, in my opinion, the county does, because of the input and call running that the county doesn't have to offset to additional trucks and staff if they didn't have the volunteers. The amount of manpower they would have to hire would be insurmountable to cover fireside, and much more increase on EMS as well, especially if some of these larger stations closed and had to close their doors. So I think the volunteer system does give a return to the county, and I highly recommend to the Board of Supervisors in here that you consider in that budget line over how it has to happen, that $80,000 to freeze the numbers where they are now, and then give the increases where they're requested. You know, it's $80,000, but you have to look at the return the county's getting back for that. That weighs heavy on me. And I was going to, Chris sends these numbers out every week, so these are his numbers. Last week, the volunteers in this county covered 81% of all EMS calls. the paid staff covered 19%. I just want to put that out there. And they do a great job. We couldn't do it without them. But I'm just trying to put that out there is the volunteers do a lot in this county and they work hard. So don't forget about them. That's all I got.
Mr. Duff.
Only thing I got is, and this kind of come from our, working on the billing, so I wanted to ask, the county that, or at least look at it, look at some of the way we do billing. And I've talked to Chris on this email, and when I say that is, I think we need to either ask the billing companies, whether it's the county or the individual agencies, to come back and do some more education. With the changes, a lot of people, and I use a health savings account as an example. We soft bill in this county. If you have a health savings account, you send the bill to the insurance company. If they haven't met their deductible, they're going to send it to the patient. The patient can ignore it, just completely ignore it. But they have insurance, or they have some type of account. So I just think it needs to be looked at. Ben just talked about $80,000 needing to be put in the budget. Are we leaving $80,000 on insurance or people that are using the service? And I know that's controversial, and I'm not saying, complete hard billing. That's the other word. But I think it needs to be addressed, or at least looked at. And I think that's something that that along with training as far as making sure you have a good quality improvement program, because a simple checkbox, a simple signature can mean whether you get paid or not. You used to have lifetime signatures years ago, not anymore. You got to have a signature for every single trip. And a lot of people don't want to get that. But that could meet that shortfall that we have just by getting a signature. So I think that's something we need to put some education out or re-education to help solve some of that problem. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. King.
My only thing is, this is my third meeting with the commission now, and so far I've enjoyed working with you guys. And actually, the ones that worked on the budget committee, I know it's not easy, but at least you can say you tried and went back and we tried to work it. If it don't work that time, then hey, we got to do what we got to do. But my request is that after this, like I said, this is my third meeting, and so far all the minutes and agendas come out with no new reports on the Cool Branch issue. And I mean, in 90 days, something should have transpired, or maybe they have been notified or anything. But I've met with them a few times. And then Mr. Andrew went and talked to Scotty and several of them at Cool Branch, one day this week. But I mean, are they being kept in the loop on this thing, or? And I don't know whether you can elaborate now. And if this is not the right setting, I'll wait. I promise you.
There are certain things that I can't talk about openly. That's all I can say about that for right now. So I understand, and believe me, I get where you're coming from, but my hands are tied on some of that.
Okay. I mean, I understand, but it's, as Mr. Meeks just said, it's hard to run a volunteer agency as it is. It's really hard to run one in limbo.
I understand that too. Believe me, I get it. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm done.
Mr. Scarce.
I have nothing, thank you.
Chief, you have anything else tonight? Mr. Sellers.
Yes, sir. This committee tonight has been addressed by a lot of the county officials, the firemen, the citizens, the fire chiefs, and there's been some controversy here tonight. Everything was handled with respect and civility, and I appreciate being a part of that, and I thank everybody here. I think Pittsylvania County has been represented well here tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Lovelace.
Nothing.
You sure?
I'm sure.
All right. Mr. Andrew.
Two things right quick. As far as the fees go, Tim and Ben were the heavy lifters on that. I was an observer. But I did come away with Tim about the billing. It seems that the billing could be more consistent throughout the county. Sounds like there might be a lot of money being left on the table, and there ought to be a way to correct that. And real quick about Cool Branch, for what it's worth, I did go before the Board of Supervisors meeting before last and told them in the public hearing that they needed to do something because the Cool Branch, their donations have dried up, I think, because Franklin County residents don't know what's going on. And the grantors have stopped granting money because they don't know what's going on. So really, Franklin County and Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors need to resolve that. In fact, I think it's Mr. Matherly, the chief at Cool Branch, said, just put an end to it. Like Jerry Clower said, when the possum got up in the tree with the guy, just shoot up in here amongst us, because one of us has got to have some relief.
Best quote of the night. Thank you, sir. You win. Vice Chair. All right, I just have a few things. One, when we talk about the Super CE weekend, if you just do some basic math over 3 days, 8 hours a day, 15 to 20 providers showing up from county agencies, that's over 1,400 continuing education hours in 3 days. Hats off to the attendees, the proctors that sat there and manned those stations to award those hours, and all of the instructors that took part. If you're interested in being an instructor at the Super CE weekend, Tommy Barber in Danville, at the Danville Area Training Center, get in touch with him for next year. They're going to start doing some planning. If you'd like to present a topic that's near and dear to your heart, that the EMS world needs to know that you know, get in touch with him. A couple things I'd like to talk about on response just real quick. I'm concerned, we had some things on Super CE weekend, and Tim Duffer being the head of the EOC in Danville there, the Emergency Operations Center, he talked about the different priority designations of calls. And even CCOM in Pittsylvania County, a lot of you don't see this, but they designate a priority level at every call. You have an Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. It's in there. It's embedded in there. The responders in the county don't get it near what we get in the city because it's on every call we get as we run. I would like to propose at some point that the response be amended and looked at, that if it is an echo call, which would be your cardiac arrest, you're choking with an obstructed airway, anything that is absolutely life-threatening or life-ending at that moment, that there be some kind of way to get any responder in that area the information that they need to respond to that call to help. It doesn't matter. I know Matt lives out in Laurel Grove, and Matt may be out in Whitmore where I live, and if he's coming down the road and he can help somebody before Troy can get out of the station, and Troy does a great job, not taking anything away from him. I love running with him when I get the opportunity. But if Matt is a minute ahead of that, that's a 10% chance of increase of survival in a cardiac arrest, because every minute your survivability rate goes down by 10%. And we need to have a way to notify these providers. I think we have the public safety, and yeah, if those stations are staffed and they're in the house and you get a cardiac arrest, they should come out of the building on go to get somebody there quick, because it's a matter of life and death. The one team, one mission, who are we serving? We're serving the public. We're serving the public. The publics are the ones everybody talks about pays those tax dollars in. Well, we need to do the best job we can for them. If that's getting public safety out until the volunteers can get there to back it up, or vice versa, we need to get any available responder on these echo-type calls to increase survivability rates. That's one thing. The other thing on response I want to speak to is specific apparatus dispatch. So Blair's getting ready to procure. They've got the ladder. I think it's getting in service. It's getting close. So we have specialty apparatus. We have big tanker trucks in the county, or tenders. We have aerial devices. Can we do specific dispatches where if it's a structure and it's somewhere between the devil and the deep blue sea and it needs a ladder truck to get there, and there's not one in its first due or second due or even fourth due, can we go ahead and priority dispatch to get that aerial device to that scene? Because that's another means of ingress and egress for the firefighters in and out, and a means to rescue. Yes, sir.
Would that happen in the GIS as well? Well, actually it's two separate things, and I'll tell you why. The dispatch system, we dispatch stations, not specific units. I worked in a system where we switched like that once, where we went from station to specific units. We can do that, but you have to kind of do it whole hog if you do it. So we have been working, talking with inside with myself and Ronnie and Daniel about how can we add, the ladder truck is a big one. How do you add the ladder truck? Because all you're going to get is station 34, station 21, something of that nature. We believe that we can actually, for the purposes, and just to get down in the weeds, I'll tell you, just for the purposes of the CAD, we could make a ladder truck a fire station, so it would recommend it. And the only thing it would everybody would even know it would be the CAD system itself, because it'll recognize it. And that's how we're looking at maybe doing that, is
Would there be something along the lines of like your auto launch with your helicopter, where it automatically goes? So if you hear that particular type of fire, that particular address, or something's blocked to it, yeah, that specific device gets out to that. Because again, it's all about life and property, and getting the adequate resources there as fast and as timely manner as we can to do the most good.
And
for
we
those
have a
people.
way to do that. We've moved some people, around in my dispatch center, and I've already tasking them with some stuff, and that's one of them. And because the priority fire will allow us to choose a response for almost 30 or 40 different type of fires. So this, a small house fire may get this, a commercial fire gets this, a big brush fire gets this versus a little brush fire. So we're already starting down that road, and we're, doing it. It's a big undertaking, but yes, we are starting down to do that. So
Excellent. Thank
totally
you, sir.
agree with you, yes.
Thank you. Other than thanking everybody for being here tonight, the chiefs, the other folks, the responders from the agencies, the public safety guys, ladies, I appreciate y'all coming out. At this point, we're going to be ready into closed session. Baden, do you take care of that?
We will need a motion from this board to enter closed session under legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A8, subject matter, Keeling Fire Department probationary status, purpose, legal consultation / advice regarding the same. We just need a motion, second, discussion, and a vote. And then, if it's an affirmative vote, we will exit this and go to the separate room for closed session.
I have a motion to go into closed session. Second. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good.
Who made the motion in the second? I did. Motion.
Almost 9:30.
Gwen, reads out a closed session, or do you need to do that later?
Which will do it. Do we have everybody back?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, the board returns open session at about 9:28. And Mrs. Tucker will read us the closed session certification.
Be it resolved that at the meeting of the Pittsylvania County Fire and Rescue Commission on March 23rd, 2021, the commission hereby certifies by a recorded vote that to the best of each commissioner's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any commissioner believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the act, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the commissioner's minutes. Chuck Angier,
Yes.
Tim Duffer,
Yes.
Brian Fox,
Yes.
Kermit King,
Yes.
Bobby Lovelace,
Yes.
Ben Meeks,
Yes.
Ronald Scares,
Yes.
Keith Scruggs,
Yes.
Bert Sellers.
Yes.
Are there any matters from closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, after months of deliberation from this body, I make the motion that the Fire and Rescue Commission recommend that the Board of Supervisors or appropriate county official suspend the operations of Keeling Volunteer Fire Department until further notice.
Have a motion. Second. Have a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
due to a conflict of interest, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Noted. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed by same sign? Motion carries. Any further business to come before the commission tonight?
Make a motion for adjournment?
Have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Have a second. Everybody have a good night.